The cemetery was quiet that afternoon, the kind of quiet that feels heavy, like the whole world is holding its breath. Soft rays of sunlight filtered through tall trees, casting long shadows over the rows of weathered tombstones. I was there visiting my grandmother's grave, a place I had come to many times before to feel close to her. That day, something caught my eye. A man was standing a few feet away, still as a statue, wearing a wide-brimmed hat pulled low over his face and dark sunglasses. His clothes were simple, nothing flashy, but the way he stood made me pause. He looked out of place, like he was trying not to be seen. But what really stopped me was that he was crying. I didn't know why, but I felt drawn to him. Maybe it was the way his shoulders shook gently, or how his hand trembled as he reached into his coat pocket. Then carefully, he pulled out a tiny guitar pick, smooth and worn, and placed it softly on the cold stone in front of him. He bent down and whispered something I couldn't quite catch. The words were soft, almost like a secret spoken only to the grave itself. My heart tightened. There was something different about this man, something real and raw that touched me deeply, even though I didn't know who he was. I wanted to ask him who he was and why he was there. But before I could move, he looked up, glanced around nervously, and disappeared down the path, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than before. I stayed there, my mind racing with questions. Who was he, and what heartbreaking story was hidden behind that quiet moment? I couldn't shake the image of that man standing by the grave, his quiet sorrow. Later that evening, I found myself unable to focus on anything else. I pulled out my phone and searched for the name on the headstone, Sarah Whitmore. At first, nothing seemed special. Just a name among countless others, someone who had lived a quiet life. But as I kept digging, reading small local news stories and old interviews, the story unfolded like a delicate thread pulling me in deeper. Sarah Whitmore wasn't just anyone. She was once the closest person to a man whose face everyone in the world knew, Johnny Depp. Childhood best friends, people said. Some whispered she might have even been his first love. They grew up together in a small town, inseparable as kids. The kind of friendship that feels like it could last forever. But as often happens with stories like these, life pulled them apart. Johnny left for Hollywood, chasing his dreams of becoming an actor, while Sarah stayed behind, building a life far away from the spotlight. Over the years their paths drifted further, and they lost contact. The news hit hard. Sarah had passed away just 2 months ago. Cancer had taken her quietly, away from the cameras, away from the noise. I couldn't believe it. The man I saw at the cemetery wasn't just any visitor. If the rumors were true, it might have been Johnny Depp himself, disguised, paying his respects in silence. A private goodbye, away from the world. Why would he come here now, after all this time? What had brought him back to this forgotten grave? And why had no one noticed him before? The thought stayed with me all night. There was more to this story, I was sure of it. Something deep, something real. And somehow I felt like I needed to find out. In the days that followed, whispers started to swirl around town. People noticed things they hadn't before, small details that suddenly seemed important. The local florist was the first to speak up. She told a reporter that for the past several weeks, a man had been coming in every Wednesday, always buying white lilies. She never saw his face clearly. He always wore a scarf wrapped high around his neck, dark sunglasses, and a wide hat that hid most of him. He never spoke much, she said. Just white lilies, please, and always paid in cash. No one knew who he was, but you could tell he was careful not to be noticed. Then there was the cemetery groundskeeper. He had been working late one evening when he heard soft music drifting through the trees. Curious, he followed the sound and found someone sitting quietly near Sarah Whitmore's grave, strumming a guitar. The man didn't notice him, so the groundskeeper stayed hidden. The melody was gentle, sad, like a song from a long-ago memory. It wasn't just music, it was a message, a private moment. Slowly, the locals began to connect the dots. A mysterious man buying flowers every week, dressed to avoid attention. A haunting guitar melody at the graveyard after dark. And rumors about Johnny Depp's childhood best friend Sarah, buried just yards away. Could it really be him? Was Johnny Depp, the famous actor, coming here in disguise to say goodbye? It seemed impossible, yet the pieces fit too well to ignore. Some people said it was a beautiful act of loyalty and love. Others thought it was a sign of a man trying to heal old wounds away from the public eye. Whatever the truth, the small town was quietly witnessing a story no one expected, a story of friendship, loss, and the silent strength of remembering. And as more people whispered, the man in the hat and sunglasses became a symbol, not just of grief, but of something deeply human. Just when the story seemed to be settling into quiet rumors, someone unexpected came forward. An elderly nurse from the local hospice, where Sarah Whitmore had spent her last days, recognized the man from the cemetery. Though she never saw his face clearly, the way he moved, the gentleness in his hands, the soft voice she had heard, told her it was Johnny Depp. She agreed to share her story, but only on the condition that her name wouldn't be revealed. She wanted Sarah's story to remain private, away from the glare of the spotlight. Johnny came to see Sarah, she said softly. Not once, not twice, but many times. Always quietly, no cameras. No entourage, just a man who loved his friend. She described how Johnny would sit by Sarah's bedside for hours, holding her hand as if he never wanted to let go. When Sarah was too weak to talk, he read to her poems, stories, old letters from their childhood. She knew what was coming, the nurse said, but she didn't want a single headline. She asked him, "Please don't tell anyone about this. Let me go quietly, without the world watching." The nurse's words painted a picture so human, so raw, it made my heart ache. This wasn't the glamorous life of a Hollywood star, this was a man grieving deeply, standing by the side of someone who had meant everything to him once. She recalled the day Sarah passed, a calm afternoon when Johnny stayed until the very end. He kissed her forehead and whispered promises to keep her memory safe. For the nurse, the visit was more than just caring for a patient. It was witnessing a private farewell between two souls tied by time, love and loss. The world outside might never see this side of Johnny Depp, the side that hurt, that remembered, that missed a childhood friend. But here in this quiet town, and in the hearts of those who knew, the truth was alive. Johnny wasn't just a star, he was a man who loved deeply, who carried memories no fame could erase. And that love had brought him back, disguised and silent, to Sarah's grave. To understand the depth of Johnny's visit, we need to go back many years, back to when Sarah Whitmore and Johnny Depp were just two kids in a small town, full of dreams and laughter. They lived just a few blocks apart, in a quiet neighborhood where everyone knew each other's names. From the very first moment they met, they were inseparable. It was the kind of friendship that feels like it could last forever. I imagine them as children, sitting beneath a big old oak tree in the park, the sun warm on their faces, their laughter echoing in the air. Sarah with her bright eyes and wild curls, strumming a little guitar she'd saved up for. Johnny sitting close beside her, humming softly, his fingers tapping rhythms on his knees. Music was their secret language. They shared songs and stories, made up silly tunes, and dreamed of a future filled with adventure. Sarah was the first person Johnny ever played music for. She believed in him before anyone else did. They made promises to always be there, no matter where life took them. "We'll always be best friends," Sarah would say. "Even if we're miles apart." But as the years passed, things changed. When Johnny was just a teenager, his family moved away. He left for Hollywood, chasing a dream that was bigger than the small town could hold. Sarah stayed behind, her heart heavy but full of hope that one day, they'd find their way back to each other. Letters were exchanged at first, handwritten notes filled with stories and encouragement. But slowly the letters became less frequent. Life got busy, new people entered their worlds. And the distance grew wider, the silence between them grew too. For Sarah it was a quiet ache, a missing piece she carried with her every day. For Johnny it was a memory tucked away beneath the surface, a chapter of his life that he rarely spoke of. Yet, even in silence, that bond remained. It never truly disappeared. It was there in the way Johnny's eyes sometimes clouded over when asked about the past, in the soft grip he held when he thought no one was watching. That childhood friendship, filled with music and dreams, shaped them both. It was a love that didn't need words, one that lasted far beyond the years they spent apart. And when Sarah became sick, that old promise from so long ago resurfaced, bringing Johnny back to the small town, back to the oak tree, back to a friendship that time couldn't break. Before Sarah passed away, she made Johnny one simple but powerful request. In the quiet moments between pain and hope, she looked at him with eyes full of memories and trust. She said, "When I'm gone, promise me one thing. Come to my grave, but come as yourself, not the movie star everyone knows." She didn't want the cameras. She didn't want the headlines, or the flashing lights. She wanted Johnny, the boy she grew up with, the friend who knew her heart. To remind him of those days, she gave him something small but precious, a worn guitar pick they had shared as kids. It wasn't just a piece of plastic. It was a symbol of their friendship, a silent promise of the music and dreams they once created together. Johnny kept that pick close, carrying it with him in the quiet hours of the night. When he visited her grave, that guitar pick was the first thing he placed on her headstone. It was his way of saying, "I remember, I'm here, I never forgot." And true to his word, Johnny never spoke publicly about Sarah. He honored her wishes and kept their story private, away from the glare of fame. It was a secret goodbye, one only he and Sarah shared, a private chapter in a life otherwise lived in the spotlight. That promise was a final act of love, respect and loyalty, a gift to Sarah, and a way for Johnny to carry her memory in his heart forever. A week later, I found myself drawn back to that quiet cemetery, unable to forget the man I had seen standing by Sarah's grave. I walked slowly down the same path, heart heavy with questions. And there he was again, the man in the hat and sunglasses. This time he was sitting on a low stone bench, gently strumming a soft tune on his guitar. The melody was tender, almost like a lullaby, floating through the still air. I stayed hidden behind a tree, not wanting to disturb him, but my ears caught the words he whispered between the chords. His voice was low, filled with pain and longing. "I'm sorry I left, I never stopped thinking about you." The weight of those words hit me like a wave. I realized then that I wasn't just watching any man, I was witnessing someone carrying decades of guilt, love and regret, all wrapped into one. His hands trembled slightly as they moved across the strings, and tears shone beneath those dark glasses. It was a raw, heartbreaking moment, too private to intrude on, yet too powerful to forget. I quietly wiped my own tears, feeling an unexpected connection to the sadness in his song. This wasn't just about saying goodbye to a friend. It was a man trying to make peace with a past he wished he could change. Watching him, I understood why the world never saw this side of Johnny Depp. Behind the fame, the movies and the flashing cameras, was a heart that still carried the pain of leaving someone he loved behind. That day, in that silent cemetery, I saw a love that had never faded, one that no amount of time, distance or silence could erase. After the man quietly stood and walked away, I felt a strange urge to approach the grave. The soft strumming had faded, replaced by the stillness of the afternoon. As I stepped closer, I noticed my hand tucked carefully beneath the fresh flowers, a small folded note, worn at the edges as if it had traveled a long way. Curious, I unfolded it gently. The handwriting was delicate, almost poetic, filled with raw emotion. The words spoke of memories, loss, and the quiet ache of farewell, but it was the last line that struck me deepest. Some goodbyes last a lifetime, but some loves never leave. There was no signature, no name to claim the note. But in my heart, I knew who it was from. I pulled out my phone and took a photo, feeling both honored and humbled, to hold a piece of this secret story. Without thinking much, I posted the note anonymously online, hoping to share a glimpse of this hidden love and loss with the world. Within hours, the post spread like wildfire. People from all corners of the globe resonated with the simple yet powerful message. Comments poured in, stories of their own lost loves, of goodbyes that never quite ended, and of memories that stayed alive no matter the distance or time. The note became more than words on paper, it became a symbol. A quiet tribute to love that lasts beyond life itself. And through that anonymous message, the world caught a rare glimpse of Johnny Depp, not as a celebrity, but as a man touched by a friendship and a loss so deep it needed no spotlight at all. The moment the note went online, the story took on a life of its own. People from all over the world began sharing it, across social media, forums, and even news sites. It wasn't just a story about a famous actor anymore. It had become something much bigger. Fans started expressing a new kind of love for Johnny Depp. Not just Johnny the actor, the man who played pirates and rebels on the big screen, but Johnny the human. The friend who remembered a childhood bond, the quiet mourner who respected a promise, the person who felt loss so deeply, he visited a grave in disguise. The words from that simple note, "Some goodbyes last a lifetime, but some loves never leave," resonated with millions. They became more than just a line, they became a symbol of hope, memory, and the power of lasting love. Soon the quote was everywhere, printed on t-shirts, turned into posters, and even inspiring fan art that captured the bittersweet beauty of the story. People used it to remember their own loved ones, to hold on to memories, and to find comfort in the idea that some connections never truly end. But through all the buzz and excitement, Johnny Depp stayed silent. He neither confirmed nor denied the story. Perhaps that was the final part of the promise he made, to keep this chapter of his life private and sacred. In the end, the story touched hearts, not because of fame, but because it was real. A reminder that behind every star is a person who loves, grieves, and remembers, just like all of us. Sometimes the most beautiful stories happen far from the spotlight, quiet moments filled with love, loss, and promises kept. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and share it with someone who believes in lifelong love and quiet goodbyes. Your support helps us share more true, heartfelt stories like this one, stories that stay with you long after the screen fades to black. Don't forget to subscribe, so you never miss a chance to feel something real.